Hey guys, what's up? Is it week 432, 431? But let's jump right into the reviews. The first one up is from On Earth Films, a 2009 film, and this is Maskhead. Now, this was the follow-up to Toe Tag's Pictures, their August Underground films, and Red Sin Tower. So this is the one they kind of made after that. And it was kind of a big move for them. They had moved into a studio, and they made Murder Collection, and they made Maskhead kind of back-to-back. They used some of the crew from Maskhead, cast from Murder Collection in Maskhead, and whatnot. So yeah, I'm trying to think when the first times I started going around to Wasteland is honestly probably around that time. I feel like I was right there kind of early when these ones were released. I had been aware of the August Underground movies around that time when these were released and everything like that. So it was, I saw it the one time, and I remember liking it. I remember enjoying it. And rewatching it, I'm just kind of surprised, how well it held up. For a lot of indie movies, I had affinity for indie movies from that time. I think I just was kind of getting into them a lot really strongly and started acting a few years later. So I have a soft spot for a lot of that stuff, and I always felt like Toe Tag on most of their movies, I felt like always delivered or got better or something along those lines, But yeah, Maskhead. This is one of the weirdest ones. So the story goes that Fred Vogel was contacted by Philip Swan. Scott Swan, not Philip. Philip Swan's probably the guy from Lord of Illusions, but Scott Swan, who wrote Cigarette Burns for John Carpenter. He had worked out of Hollywood, and he had caught drift of August Underground, saw it, and he was pretty much blown back, and he was like, I want to make kind of an extreme movie. I want to get involved with that and everything like that. So he talked with Fred a little bit, and they started coming up with these couple movies, and Maskhead's what came out of it. And Maskhead is a real weird mixture. It has a lot of comedy beats, but it's got a lot of long, big dialogue chunks, soliloquies and stuff like that, monologues and stuff from characters, which is very uncommon. Shelby's actually one of the stars in here, Fred's wife, who was helping a lot at the time on Toe Tag. I think she probably came in from August Underground Penance around that time. But yeah, so the kind of guy who steals the show here is this character called Cowboy, who is an actor. I wasn't super familiar with him then, and I'm not super familiar with him now, but he definitely steals the show. He's got these long, crazy speeches and just these wild stories. So the story of Maskhead is basically, they talk about it in the commentary, but I'm not so sure it comes out in the actual movie, but it's definitely in a world. It's in a weird world. It's not in the typical regular world that we're in. It has a weird sense of things, It's not exactly, if you ever watch a movie where the world's just off. In this world, things are like this. So they are basically snuff filmmakers, and they get a bunch of people to come in here, which fits right. You think August Underground, we're going to have these pseudo fake snuff kind of things, but it's not necessarily that. So they get a lot of these people come in under the guise that they're going to shoot a porno, and they're going to be doing these fetish films, like, oh, you like clowns, or do you like these things? And they basically bring in their serial killing gimp, Maskhead, and he's this kind of hulking, kind of crazy guy with this rad mask, a weird crazy mask, and he kills them via snuff films. The one thing that stands out in comparison to a lot of the other Toe Tag films is there's a lot of gay characters in this film. The character Cowboy is not necessarily, he frequents sex fisting scene, I guess you'll say is the best way, and there's the two lesbian characters are the leads, and they're the villains that are kind of setting the whole thing up, though. So it's definitely, for 2009 in the indie horror world, it was a little bit, I guess you'd say, almost transgressive, progressive for the time. But yeah, the dialogue is pretty solid. Most of the acting is cool and decent, I think. In low-budget movies it ranges, but for the most part, I think the acting's pretty decent. I think that a lot of the big line deliveries and the crazy dialogues are actually funny. And Scott Swan would do that shit with he made a short, I don't even want to say that, it's called Retard Abortion years ago, and I remember that being completely crazy and very extreme in that way as well. And he actually directed and wrote a movie called Big Junior, where I think the character lead and Big Junior, one of the villains, is supposed to be brothers with Cowboy, and he's got a lot of the same kind of speeches and things like that in that film, and it has a similar taste to Maskhead, but Maskhead has also that Toe Tag flavor, so we have a lot of, in-depth special effects, and they do pick up at the very end. At first, you're like, okay, this is pretty, not mild, I would never call it mild, but they're not super elaborate in comparison to some of the other stuff, but by the end of it, they are pretty gnarly, and there's, of course, the scene you expect to see in this kind of movie, like if you got like a snuff kind of fetish film, you expect to see some nasty penetration, whatnot, and that's definitely in here. There's some familiar faces that pop up in other Toe Tag films. We got Damien, I'm never going to be able to say his last name right, but he pops up at Salatursica. He's in here in a crazy role. A pretty crazy role for him. Good performance for sure. This was very seedy. And kind of sleazy in a lot of aspects too, but it's also zany and goofy. Like they'll have these infomercials, so they're definitely taking making some jokes about the whole thing too. That they'll pop up and say that this is what you have to do to be a model, and they're kind of making fun of that whole scene too. But if anybody ever watched a lot of porn in that time, like high school time, like I was 2005 or whatnot, that kind of element, it does feel that like setting these up and stuff with the interviews. It does feel like that kind of backyard kind of porn stuff, setting it up. But overall, I think Maskhead's worth watching. I think it's a little bit different than the other toe tag movies, and I think that like it's almost a blessing and a curse to have the August Underground movies to be like they did 4 movies first. It was August Underground 1, Mortem, and then Red Sun Tower, then Penance. But having those movies so early in the career, they got it out of the way, because they finished a trilogy. But that coming out like that, being that crazy kind of style, it almost set you into where's the next August Underground. So doing something like this was a cool idea. And Murder Collection has it's kind of like a Faces of Death style thing. Like if you followed a whole bunch of mixtapes or something like that of like murders on the internet and things like that. I actually remember preferring Maskhead much more over Murder Collection, but I think Murder Collection's coming out too, so I'll definitely revisit that one. This has got a bunch of features on it, guys, so bear with me. There's 2 new commentaries, which is listen to both of those. New one with co-director Fred Vogel, Scott Swan. That was cool. They kind of jog each other's memory and talk about the seedy hotel, and it's pretty cool. They talk about how they met and everything like that, so that's really cool. And then 2025 commentary with co-director Fred Vogel, Shelby Vogel, FX artist Jeremy Cruz, and Ultraviolet magazine editor Art Ediger, who's no stranger to this show. He moderates in the very beginning. Throughout the entire thing, he pops up. He's the first one to talk, and he, asks a lot of questions of Fred and Jeremy and all that kind of stuff like that, bringing up cool, interesting ideas. Original 2009 commentary with co-director Fred Vogel and Scott Swan, new Swan cut, and then we have an introduction with co-director by Fred Vogel. That's pretty short. Behind the Mask, an interview with Maskhead. That's about 17 minutes. New Below the Brim interview with the Cowboy. That's cool. That's where I got to learn that how he's kind of like a very professional actor. They always said he was a super intelligent guy, works for Google. Frankenstein's Maskhead, an interview with co-designer Fred Vogel. New the first test footage, new creating the character, new Food Girl extended death, new on set with Food Girl, new fun with special effects in the Toe Tag studio, new in recording studio, new I will break your fucking arm, new violated by 2x4, new The Room, new pieces of Maskhead, a mask, some gauze, and a 2x4 dildo, the creation of Maskhead with commentary FX artist Jeremy Cruz, blooper reel, Cowboys Whistling Clinic, extended photo gallery trailer. So we got a bunch of behind the scenes footage as well. Yeah, cool release from Honored Films, and I feel like this belongs with them for sure. But it's a good toe tag one, a bit different from their other films, but it's cool. And they did talk about that, like, man, I think that this maybe still holds up now because we have all these like gay characters a little bit different. But times are changing again, so you never know when this one go back to being like transgressive, progressive, and you're like, oh no, there's no gay characters in movies anymore. Who knows what will happen? But hey, all right, this next one is from Radiance Films, and this is a crazy film. I had never heard of this film, which is kind of shocking because it seems like it'd be right up my alley or people that are in line with my kind of stuff's alley. So I had not heard anyone talk about this. This is a Polish film from 1973 called Through and Through. And this is based on a true life crime that happened in the 30s, kind of in a vein of like, you'd say like the Badlands murders or Charles Starkweather or the Honeymoon Killers in that kind of vein. This is shot in bleak, crazy black and white. It has unorthodox cinematography, unorthodox editing, unorthodox emotional things in here, and a story. It is one of the weirdest films that I've ever seen. In fact, I was an hour into it before I registered exactly what is happening or exactly where this thing is going to go. And by then, I was hooked at the end. I was very invested. And the special feature, they have an expert that talks about the director and the crimes and everything that adds a lot of much needed context, and I think it helps this movie immensely. So he talks a lot about this director being kind of an unsung hero in Polish cinema, and he believes this was the best Polish film ever made, which is crazy when you think all the Polish directors and things like that. Yeah, this movie, like I said, is one of those ones that's it's very hard to explain. I guess you can kind of explain it to some of their other releases. I would say A Woman Under the A Decade. The Woman's, I can't think, from 1970. It's like that, but it's also like Femrock, the film they put out, which is also completely pretty much impossible to put in any category. So we follow this newlywed couple, one of which, who is one of the guy's brother, says she's a prostitute, but and one of which is just kind of this. It's during very much the Great Depression kind of 30s deal, and no one can find work. He tries to get a job as an architect, but he's just not very good at it. He's not good at anything. He's an outcast to his family, and eventually it leads to them to commit an ultimate violent crime, and we have the trial. And what makes this unique is, instead of going backstabbing on each other, their love kind of shines through. And it paints the characters as real human beings, and you have some empathy for them. And the way they shot the murder scene, it was so grueling and brutal that you think you wouldn't have much empathy for them. And I don't even know how to explain how they do it. They'll do like extreme close-ups. They'll cut to certain things. They'll do crazy noises. And they do a lot of scenes with these characters where they make sure that that they feel very isolated in society and they don't fit in. At one point, I can't think of their husband and wife. I don't know their characters' names, because I don't even know if they are definitely said. But the wife kind of is at one point just like in an alleyway. She has like this breakdown. And there's also scenes where they like kind of bond in the weirdest ways, where they're in a field and he's like jumping around naked in there, and she starts to laugh and like just watch him from a distance, and you could tell she loves him. And there's just like lots of nice touches. And the end, I'm not spoiling it, but I feel like I have to sell this movie, because there's not much to say in terms of like, besides it's just a crazy, unique movie, and with great cinematography and weird editing. And I'm not sure, when I walked away from this thing, I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, and I don't know how to feel about it. But the more I reflect on it, I say, man, that was really different. It did remind me of Honeymoon Killers, and which I love, but it's definitely more artsy fartsy, even though I think Honeymoon Killers has its moments of being like that too. But it's definitely more, I'd say, experimental. But I love the scene where they're going to court every day and they have to be separated, and it shows them looking at each other over the shoulder being pulled away. I think that was just kind of a brilliant scene, and they do it a few times. But based on a true story, just a heartbreaking, crazy, disturbing movie. I would call it disturbing too, but good release of a movie I never heard of. And this is why I keep watching them, man. This is why I keep diving and watching all these different films from all around the world, because you're always bound to find a gem like this. And I don't know if this movie will be for everybody. It most certainly will not. But the people that dig it will dig it. And I think there will be people that really enjoy this one. I feel like if you're a fan of like something like Angst, I would take Angst and the Honeymoon Killers and Femrock and put them in a blender. And if you want to walk away and be like, oh, that's something I was interested in, that's such a disturbing combination. Not nearly as funny as Honeymoon Killers, but the black and white and the whole plot of that kind of reminds me of that. But like the weird Femrock stuff and as well as in here. But yeah, so the special features are interview with critic Mikhail Oselekic. I can't say his name, I'm sorry. But I love that interview. It's like 30 minutes, and he talks a lot about the case and this movie and all sorts of things like that. And it's a very, it's perfect because it's a mixture of all the background and his opinions and the history of the filmmaker. 3 short films by the director. Everyone Gets What They Want, 66. Oh, Everyone Gets What They Want, What They Don't Need, 66. Brothers, 71. Don't Cry, 72. Reversible sleeve featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Time Tomorrow. Limited edition booklet featuring new writings by Ella Bittencourt. Yeah, I actually like the cover art here. I think it's just kind of simple and says everything it needs to say. Alright, this next one here is from 88 Films, and this is Jakoman and Tetsu. And this was based on, I think, a book, and then that book was made into a movie in 49, and then it was redone in 1964 with added script elements that are not even credited and whatnot. And this is directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who did Battle Royale, Battles Without the Honor and Humanity, Green Slime, Legend of the Eight Warriors. He's done a million movies. I've covered probably like 20 movies of his. He's probably one of the best Japanese directors ever as far as Western audiences are concerned. I think a lot of his stuff has been released here, and it's really good stuff. And it also stars the star from Abashi Prison Walls, or that film that I've covered that part of that series on here as well, the lead in that film. So I didn't really know exactly what to expect on this, and this is a post-Japanese War one, how Japan struggles with it. Gate of Flesh was also a movie that kind of follows that idea, right? The one I covered here from, I think, the 70s. It was an excellent movie about the prostitutes and stuff banding together to survive. But it's really kind of a crazy time in Japanese history, of course, World War II, but the struggle after World War II and how we kind of look at that here. So what we have here is this horrible kind of guy who's trying to start his own fishing, small company. And at the time, there's a lot of people, drifters and stragglers and migrants that don't have anywhere to go, don't have any money, they're desperate for money. So he hires these guys for pretty much shit wages, and he's waiting for the herring to come, and they're going to spawn, and they're going to catch all these herring, and that's where he's going to make his money here. Like Deadliest Catch, you know what it is, right, guys? It's one time a year, you got your shot, you put all your money in here. And him and his family are pretty much in debt because of it. At one point, we realized that the father here is a piece of shit because he took a guy's boat that he claimed he thought was dead, and he left him stranded. And this guy is Jakoman, who is, they say his name is basically like, I don't remember what it is, something like Coyote or something like that, but he's like this crazy mad hunter with an eye patch. But he ends up coming back, and he has a score to settle. He says, I don't want money, I don't want anything, I just want to see you cry tears of blood. And you're like, oh boy. So he basically is hanging around here, waiting for him to fail. He also has a tag along with him, a woman who's madly in love and obsessed with him. But surprisingly, our father here, his family, he's like a grandmother, a father, and two other kids, a daughter and son. He comes back, one of the other sons that thought to be dead. They thought was dead. He comes back, and he's kind of like the privileged one that they sent to school, and he's just an incredibly, loving son, and just an overall solid, fair person. And that's where we have, Ken Takamura Mura. I think that's his name. I've seen him in dozens of things, but the prison movies is where I remember him most from at this point. But so he comes in, and him and his Tetsu and Jakoman, they're gonna butt heads. And it's kind of this long kind of drama that's drawn out. I don't want to say drawn out in a bad way. There's also this character here that has a really shady past. It kind of reminds me of the Eel, where he's this character that did some really bad things, and he's struggling with his conscience and everything like that. But yeah, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of character building. And the one thing I take away from this is the father in here is such a piece of shit. By the end of it, it's like they try to play him off as like a curmudgeon, and like, oh, he's still kind of a curmudgeon. And you're like, no. He's horrible. He's horrible. But it ends up being a story about a couple characters that do finally understand each other to a certain extent. And, I like this. It's good. It's black and white. It's shot really well. The fishing place is a great location for it. And it's a nice look at how hard life is back then and the struggles that a lot of people had to endure. Then the commentaries and the special features, there's an interview with Jasper Sharp's on the commentary, and then there's an interview. It's I don't want to mix them up, guys. Oop. Knocking off movies here, but I don't want to mix up who does the commentary and everything and who does this special feature here. Audio commentary, Tom Mez and Jasper Sharp, and then we have an introduction by Mark Schilling. So there we go. Yeah, I don't remember who exactly says this, but they say the movie is set in such a rural place on the kind of the coastland that it's like it looks even more like a period piece. It looks like it takes place before the 40s, and it does. It really does, and that's a lot of these kind of movies that you watch. Even something like Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, you pop in, and before you see a car, you're like, what was this, like a Western time? Is this like the the pre-Civil War, right around the Civil War time or something along those lines? Or like, not that time, like maybe like right before World War One, but then you're like, oh no, there's a car that don't match and stuff like that. And it does have that kind of feel here too. But there's some other characters added in here where he like goes and visits he was a sailor, so he visits like a fallen friend's family and kind of has a bond with them at the same time. But yeah, this one's pretty good about family drama and whatnot, and some dangerous catching fish. As far as the features, like I said, there's a commentary with Jasper Sharp and Tom Mez, who know a lot about this kind of stuff. And that introduction by Mark Schilling. All three of these guys I've seen a bunch of times on Japanese cinema releases, and they do a good job. It looks fantastic, too, and the director's one of the best. I've seen probably 20 of his films, and 88 Films does a good job. This is like part of their Japanese line. Good stuff. Alright, we're going to do the next one in the Shinobi series here. This is the Volume 2 box set. And we covered the first one last week, and that was Part 4, Siege. We're going to do Part 5, Return of Mist Saizo. And this picks up right where the first one left off. So the first one left off is the castle crumbled to the ground, and he saved his lord and pulled him out there in the Lone Wolf and Cub guy. So he takes him with him, and he's like, we got to get this guy. What is his name? Iasazu or Izasaya, the bad guy who is, a real life character who is like kind of like one of the big, like, part of the shogunate and whatever. He's just like a horrible, ruthless piece of shit. And they basically want to kill him, even though he's not really kind of the head honcho that they think he is anymore. But that's kind of their main goal here. So it kind of brings in the fact that at that time, Japan was like kind of closed off, so they weren't trading with everybody. And there's like kind of trying to get these different kind of guns and everything. And everyone realizes that if we get these guns, we can win. and we can win and take out the the forces that are much bigger than us. And that's kind of where it stems from. And our lord here, on our ninja's side here, the Shinobi, is kind of being hidden at other little places, and they're all trying to work together to kind of bond. But of course, our villain here is looking for him constantly. He's sending out other Shinobi and using other people and pushing muscle and things like that, while they're all competing to collect these guns. That's kind of the plot here. But it does end with a really cool showdown, of course. But it all seems for like nothing at the end, which is 100% with these kind of things happen. There's a good little storyline here where he runs into somebody that is looking for revenge, and it ends tragically, as you kind of would expect in that aspect. He's always that character. It's like, my ninja duty comes first. I will never stop until I do it. I can never take on a loved one. But then he immediately falls half in love with all these women. And the first one, in the part 4, he does, and this one he does. It's like, come on, man. But I think the end's really fun because the main bad guy here has his last final ninjas go after him, and they're all these movies take place in the way the Japanese buildings are designed. There's rafters basically, kind of, and you guys really got to stop building your structures like that, because there's just ninjas riddled throughout the entire structure, and they're all trying to shoot you with some poison darts or some shit. So you just really got to look out. But it's kind of funny in that aspect that that's pretty much where all the bad guys are doing. Always not bad guys, but the ninjas, bad or good, are up in the rafters getting ready to poison people and whatnot. But this one's good, just as good as part 4. I don't think it's the most amazing standout, and I think that the first act, the first half of the movie actually is a lot of back and forth bureaucracy and stuff and planning and all those kind of things like that. And I think when somebody gets something called Shinobi or Ninja, they definitely were looking for that hardened action, that quick action, and I think it's there, but you just got to be a little bit more patient than you normally would be. But as far as the features are concerned, we have high transfer, of course, high definition transfer, interview Japanese period film historian Tatsu Kasuga, 24 minutes. Select scene audio commentary, Siege by Tom Mez. That's from the part 4. It's 48 minutes. The Faces of Rizzo, visual essay by Tom Mez, and that talks about the actor and his entire career and all the films he did and throughout and stuff. And then we have newly improved English subtitle translation, reversible sleeves, 6 postcards and everything like that. I showed those last time. No need to show those again. But both pretty good films. Both made in 1964. Both around 90 minutes or so. But yeah, this one's pretty cool too. I'm looking forward to watching the final one in this set. I don't really know where they're going to go, since their kind of main bad guy in this one is no longer. Alright, we're going to get into the weekly western. That's right, I'm doing a weekly western here, and this is from the Warner Archive Collection, and this is There Was a Crooked Man. Yes, I had never really seen this one. This is 1970. I'd heard a little bit about it, but it was on my radar because my boy Warren Oates was in it. It's a Warner Archive. I was like, I'm going to get that. It's got Warren Oates, and I looked at the other cast. It's like, okay, you got Kirk Douglas, you got Henry Fonda, you got Burgess Meredith, you got Alan Hale in here, you got the guy from, Beneath the Valley of the Dolls. So I was like, we got a really strong, great cast in this little movie here. And I popped it in, and it had this strange tone, this almost goofy kind of hijinks tone with Kirk Douglas robbing these guy all this money and everything like that. And then it gets violent. Kirk Douglas is shooting people in the back, and I'm like, what a piece of shit. He is a snake. And hey, the title suggests who he is. There was a crooked man, and he's a crooked son of a bitch. And he basically betrays the people, and he's on the road. He ends up getting caught and arrested. Meanwhile, at the same time, we kind of are introduced to the small town sheriff and Henry Fonda, good-natured Henry Fonda, of course, and he doesn't like to, rule the town with violence. He tries to talk everybody out of it, but good old Warren Oates is drunk and ends up shooting him, kind of crippling partially. And he's kind of no longer a good lawman. So Warren Oates and a bunch of other people, we see their stories, a couple of them end up in this kind of harsh, jail, this jail and everything like that. And Kirk Douglas has a bunch of money hidden, what everybody knows about, so the warden's kind of pushing on him to get it. We're introduced to all the cellmates and everything, including Burgess Meredith, who's the something kid, and he's been here forever. Burgess Meredith's fucking fantastic in this movie. They were in a movie together already, Warren Oates and Burgess Meredith, 92 in the Shades, pretty cool movie, check that one out. But so the kids in here, they're all kind of prison guys. And there's also these two kind of quirky guys that are definitely gay coded. I think they come out and just say it. At one point, somebody refers to them as fairies, and they make this joke. They're like, "Why would that guy go on that young kid?" And they're like, "Oh," and they're like, "Come on." And I can't think of the actors' names. I've seen them pop up a bunch before, character actors, and one's billed pretty high up, and I'm not super familiar with them. Cronin. I think he might be kind of a comedian at the time. The other actor reminds me a lot of Alan Alda, but he's older. And these two guys, is it Randolph something I can't think of, but they're both funny. They're both really entertaining characters. So this is kind of our group of characters, and Kirk Douglas realizes, hey, I want to break out of this place. Long before we know, there's a new warden in town, and it's Henry Fonda. So that complicates things. And Henry Fonda is trying to turn this prison around. He's trying to bring them rights. He's trying to do all these good things. And Kirk Douglas is just a fucking snake. And throughout the movie, like, you like him. You watch him manipulate and convince all these people and all this stuff like that. And a really great performance. And you start to really think that these guys are going to be great and things like that and come together. But it does remind you that these guys are violent criminals. And when push comes to shove, they do unspeakable shit. And even though you like them, you're like, oh boy. What happens to Burgess Meredith in this movie, his reaction and everything like that, it just broke my heart. Alan Hale is one of the prison guards. He's really good. That's a skipper from there. He's great in this too. But yeah, Warren Oates is great. The acting is tremendous. And I love Henry Fonda. I'm not as familiar with Henry Fonda as I should be. 12 Angry Men, Once Upon a Time in the West are the ones I'm really familiar with. But he's really good in this. He's got this great, good-natured quality about him. And I love the ending. And a fitting ending for all the characters involved, negative or positive or whatnot. But There Was a Crooked Man's fucking great. Love this movie. Great Western. And it turns into a prison escape movie. And it's got this comedy element. But it's also got like nudity and stuff. I was like, it's like almost slapsticky at times, and like, hey, isn't it all funny? But back then, movies would have these ridiculous moments of comedy, ridiculous moments of violence, and ridiculous moments of action and stuff like that. It was more fitting. Somehow they blended these well. And the characters fit into the world. And the tone never changes. The tone is always that, where it can be silly and lighthearted, and then also deadly. And I like that for this movie. Not won't work for every movie, as you could tell. I just bitched about weapons for an hour and a half. But you know what I mean. But there's a vintage featurette on location. There Was a Crooked Man, great movie, 1970. Recommended if you like these. You'll spot some other people in the background too that have they're recognizable, like Harry Caesar was in there as one of the prisoners and everything like that. And the other kind of goon guard, is a noticeable character actor too. So great stuff. Loved it. Okay, moving along in the Pete Walker Flesh and Blood Show box set. We are into the House of Whipcord. And I guess Flesh and Blood Show, House of Whipcord, and it's House of Whipcord, Frightmare, and House of Mortal Sin. They started like their own little trilogy here. So this one is 1972. I got to cover up a nipple on there. Like the cover art a lot. Yeah, and this one's really cool stuff. Listen to the commentary with Pete Walker and the other commentary with, I think it was Kim Newman and Kevin Loynes. But I like this one. This is probably my favorite of the three so far. So what we have here is this kind of struggling like model actress. She's a French girl, not really a French girl, but she kind of strips nude and just pictures taken of her and everything like that. And she meets this kind of guy. She's kind of embarrassed by it. She meets this guy named Marc Desade. Holy shit, like, that's so silly. Actually played by the main vampire in Vampire Circus. Your children will die. That guy, he's great in that. He's good in this. He's got a wolf nose, man. Looks really peculiar, but great at the same time. So he ends up kind of befriending her and says, hey, come with me and hang out with me at my father's house. And he drives her in an isolated place. And what turns it is like this homemade prison where these two people used to run in a prison. I think one was a judge, and it's the old man from the previous film, Flesh and Blood Show. And he's like this old senile judge that used to, run like this prison, everything moral thing. And another lady, I think they call Thatcher. Ooh, you get it right? Or no, she's not Thatcher. She's like Wakehurst is her name, and she's like, but they definitely have a name like Walker, and there's a Thatcher in here as well. But Pete Walker does talk about that too. So what happens is these people are running this women in prison, like they have their own secret prison, and they have these girls here, and if they break the rules, first rule is a warning. I think second one they get whipped, third one they get executed. And the old judge doesn't know exactly what's going on, but they have these two kind of ruthless female guards that run the place too. One of which is the lady who pops up in Frightmare later on and a bunch of his other films. But this is just pretty crazy woman in prison flick. And it opens up in the movie where you would suggest a happier ending in a pretty good scene. And you're like, okay, and then it goes back to that structure. And this movie is pretty bleak, pretty dark stuff. Pretty twisted too. It's got some incestuous tones and some messed up stuff like that. There is a real intense scene where the two old people go at each other. They get each other's face and they're just like back and forth. And one grabs a knife and you're like, Ooh, it's really intense, really good stuff. I thought this was great. I thought it was really cool how they kind of dog on the moral right. You know how the moral like authority that always is telling people about their morality and just morality police essentially like that. And that's why she's in here is because she posed nude in public and she got a misdemeanor, so they feel like she was not properly punished. So she's got to go through this basically re-education camp and all that kind of stuff. And crazily enough, the way that other people find this prison is believable. The way they do it in here, and I thought that was effective. As far as the features are concerned, I know we have a bunch of them here, but we have audio commentary with critics Kim Newman, Barry Forshaw, and writer David McGillivray. Sorry, it's Barry Forshaw on this one. I think they were on the other one, but that's interesting because the writer actually has a cameo in here, talks about working with Pete Walker, and then we have a commentary with director, producer, co-writer Pete Walker, and director of photography Pete Jessup, moderated by biographer Steve Chimnall. That's 2006. Also interesting stuff. They talk about the whole Thatcher White House thing and all that kind of stuff like that. That they didn't even name that for that. And this one actually passed the BBC like British board pretty quick. And then like the guy running it was like, hey, I actually like that you're kind of taking the air out of some of this stuff. And he added this weird opening. It said this is for the moral right. People that are like the people that are upset that our moral fabric of society is losing. And I like that a lot. But then we have a courting controversy, an interview with Insider's view of the films of Pete Walker. She talks a lot about, just kind of trying to push people's buttons and how he retired at 40 because he can't tell a young person's story when he's middle-aged, and I can kind of respect that, honestly. House of Walker interview with director Pete Walker, return to the old House of Whipcord. Now it's like this weird, like, criminology place. And then Sheila Keith, a nice little thing on her, talking about her career, who she was in the movie she did with Pete Walker. A nice old lady, it says. Original trailer. Good stuff. I would recommend this one. Got that classic cover. And it's also unique because he basically wanted to make this because he asked Harry Allen Towers, he's like, what is your most successful movie you ever had? And he said, well, 10 Violent Women or something like the prison film he did. And he's like, oh, I don't really want to do a prison film, but I think I got an idea, and it's a genius way to mix in that kind of like, kind of poking fun at those, the moral authorities on things like that while also doing a prison film and its own kind of unique thing as well. But House of Whipcord, good stuff. All right, guys, let's do some 2025 movies, and I feel like a villain this year. I really do. And it's just like even everybody's favorite movies, I'm like, that was good. That wasn't great. Like, Bring Her Back, I'm like, I liked it. It wasn't great. And then 28 years later, I'm like, I fucking hated it. And then, like, here we're going to talk about Weapons. Here we go. Now, before that, I liked Weapons, okay? I thought it was good. And I guess, I don't know if I bought in the hype or something, it was just a little bit of a letdown. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. Let me I don't know how to talk about this movie without spoiling it, so I'm going to talk briefly about it, and then we'll get into spoilers and whatnot. Overall, I think it's a good movie. I think you should go see it. The structure is unique enough. The structure wears out its welcome. The runtime is a little too long. And by the final act, I had lost a little bit of interest, although the final act does pack one of the visually most hilarious, demented things in a film this year, which I loved. And the humor beats are great. The humor beats in this movie are probably the best thing it has going for it, which is kind of cool because it's not like the most ridiculously silly humor. It's like kind of the visual absurdity of a lot of things, but also the fact if something really terrifies you in real life, a lot of times you're like, what the fuck? Like that kind of stuff, and that just works. And I think the humor in that aspect in this film works better than something like it does in The Monkey, where I think The Monkey pushes it a little too far to where it becomes almost not fitting to be realistic. And I know The Monkey's not looking to be realistic, but I think the humor works better in Weapons than it does Monkey, even though I like The Monkey as well. Both The Monkey and Weapons are both good movies that I don't love. But so here we go. So like I said, that this story is broken up. Overall I say go see it. My only concern is the final act. It starts off with a mystery. You think you're getting a mystery. And I really don't think it's a mystery. I really think that the mystery kind of shit to bed. I think it doesn't fit with the movie, and I think it commits a crime like Longlegs does, where there's a character that just feels like they're out of a cartoon, like Tusk or Longlegs, where we're just throwing in cartoon characters all of a sudden. It's like, all right, we're watching, Akira, but here's Eek the Cat is in the background of Akira, like, hey! And you're like, what the fuck is Akira doing in here? I don't understand. I meant, what the fuck is Eek the Cat doing in Akira? Or, that kind of vein. And I'm obviously being hyperbolic. I'm exaggerating. I don't think Mrparka could ever open his fucking mouth without exaggerating. But I just felt a little bit like that, and immediately when that character enters the frame, I took a step back, and I was like, oh, this isn't working for me. But overall, I think it's a good film. So, go see it. Good cinematography. The one thing I really do like about it, too, as well, is the way they shoot suburbs. The suburbs are used terrifyingly. I think that hearing a dark sound in the middle of the night, walking out of your house, and there's trees and there's like some eerie light from the street, like that's all really well done too. In fact, it's really well directed. I just think the script is not my favorite, but that's some issues as well. Now getting into spoilers. So, all right, so fast forward this, go to the next review if you don't want to hear spoilers. I know this movie's relatively new. But so, essentially it's broken up into like 5 or 6 stories, like from the same point of view, kind of carrying it on forward. So one night, I think 17 kids from one classroom get up and they run out of their rooms at 2:17 and they never come back. They completely disappear. So we're in that aspect. We're like, okay, whatever. There's some like cams that count some of it. But we're supposed to say that not one of these kind of missiles, is what they're called, didn't cut themselves, didn't get hurt, somebody didn't wake up. You know what? I'm up at 2:30 in the morning. I would have seen these kids run by if they would have ran by my house. There would have been somebody that saw a little bit more than they did see. The film treats the villain in it as if the character is a Pennywise or Freddy Krueger that has some sort of spell over the town. They never elaborate that. They never break it down, and I don't need everything explained to me, but I don't think that the movie really thought much through on that aspect, because it really doesn't work there, because these characters that are on, everybody's, I guess, somewhat related. They see the villain throughout the entire movie randomly in their dreams or in visions and things like that. Even some characters that don't really have that character within them. And the characters' villains' powers are never explained to be able to do something along those lines. Also, kind of a weird nitpick here, but Josh Brolin sees in a machine gun. I don't know if it's a semi or automatic or what machine gun was in the sky, because it's fucking CGI blob turning around. But sees it in the sky, and that's kind of his hint that the kids are weapons. The kids aren't used as weapons until the very end of the fucking movie, and there's no way that his subconscious would get there. He said that they split out like missiles. Then why is he seeing a gun? This kind of small little things like that I maybe I should just ignore for the end of it. I also feel like they brush over something, and you're supposed to understand, you're like, that's fine. Like, so there's only 2 people left in the classroom. One of the kids is there and the teacher. So everybody focuses on the teacher. But the little kid's house completely is in ruins. There's newspaper on the walls. His parents later interviewed by cops. One of them doesn't even show up, and the other one shows up completely brain dead because they're under a spell. So we're supposed to let the cops didn't look into that when Pennywise, the crazy aunt, is basically the one talking to the cops. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work in a movie that is so tight-knit on a mystery that is impossible to solve, that you're like, okay, this has got to be cool, this is going to be unique. It's like saying knock knock, and then you say who's there, and then there's no answer, there's nothing. And people are like, well, I'm fine with this because it's witchcraft. It's like it's never explained. And instead of showing the last chapter be the kid, you should have either done the witch or you should have showed less of the witch. The witch character should not really be it's just a character that I think needs to be a little bit more in the shadows or a little bit more explained. The amount they explain doesn't necessarily work. And I also I understand that she's cutting off the one girl's hair to use it in a spell. But later on, she doesn't use that spell. She doesn't have any of the junkie stuff, unless the junkie left something in the house. I can't remember. I saw it once, right? But when the cop attacks it, so she doesn't need a piece of the person for them to attack. I think so, right? Is that the understanding? But then later she takes a piece of that one girl's hair, and if she has a piece of her hair, she should be able to control her there. Then why does she have to have somebody attack the teacher when she could just control her because she has a piece of her hair? There's just a million things like that. But nobody seems to care. I'm like, am I just being a nitpicky bitch? And there's a good chance I am. But at the same time, I've heard the same people praising this movie that nitpick small things like House on the Edge of the Park. They're like, why didn't they know that girl was going to show up? It's like, clearly it's a translation issue, and it's like 5 second. It's a flub, but you guys are spending 25 minutes complaining about this one little scene while Weapons has a laundry list of fucking nonsensical bullshit in it. That just doesn't really work for me. And I wanted to love this movie. I ended up just liking it. And that's the same aspect. Like, I feel like we're getting really great directors and really great actors and really good music and all that kind of stuff like that. But then, like, I feel like all the scripts are this, like, half-baked. Am I wrong? And I'm like over here being like, yeah, well, I like this crappy slasher movie. But the crappy slasher movie doesn't act like it's not a crappy slasher movie. I like the acting in this movie. I really liked Julia Gardner. I thought she was great. I thought, Josh Brolin's good too. Everybody's good in it. And even in fact, Amy Madigan, she plays the villain. Great performance. Just don't know if it belongs in this movie. That's really weird, right? Like I feel like there's a lot of that happening lately, where it's just like, all right, we got your lineup here, we got you know what I mean, like all these like villainous like badasses, and then we're like, and it's just like some crazy like wacky character in here. And I mean, I'm using it for a different movie that's I'd never even explained enough, but I'm just saying I feel like some of these characters don't fit. If you make a grounded enough world and you got somebody completely goofy in it, I lose interest to a certain extent. I feel like there's only rare actor or rare character or rare writer that can make that character work, and I feel like the go-to actor for guy who's completely out of his fucking mind but somehow manages to bring it back into reality is Dennis Hopper. Like if you watch River's Edge, it's like he's just wacky as fuck, but I believe that guy. I know that guy. I met guys like that. But you know, this character being that supernatural aspect, they never really explain what she's after, what she's looking for. You know that she wants to live forever, but why'd she need the kids when they don't explain why the kids work? Because the kids don't work, and it doesn't look like she's feeding off the kids. It's just sloppy. And they're like, well, you need everything explained to you? It's like, I need to think that the director and writer know what the fuck's going on, and I never did feel like they did. But that's Weapons. It's good. And I feel like I'm ranting. There's a good chance it'll be like my number 10 of the year. But it's also, it's not this fucking masterpiece that everyone's saying, and everyone's dogging on Together. And I'm just like, Together is a better put together movie, and people are saying like, Together's a more humorous movie too. It's just as humorous as Weapons. Maybe it doesn't land as well as the humor department as Weapons, but I think that Together is not a serious film either. It has its humor beats too, and I think they work well in that. And I enjoyed that a lot more. It's a much more simple plot that doesn't require, fucking up your story to get to a couple scenes that you want to do. Okay, the next 2025 movie here, and I'm surprised I watched it, and I'm even more surprised I didn't hate it. Because you guys remember how much I did not care for, like you guys watch this channel all the time, but hey, how much I didn't care for Lee Wynell's The Invisible Woman, or Invisible Man. So, I watched Wolfman. And I was like, I don't like these redos of the Universal Monsters. It's not my thing. It's not my Wolfman. Hashtag. But, so I put this in. I'm like, okay, I heard it's like The Fly. I heard it's too dark to see anything. I heard the special effects suck. So I'm watching it. I'm like, okay. And then I'm watching. I'm like, this is pretty decent. Julie Gardner's in here. Chris Abbott. Some other people. I'm like, the acting's good. Cinematography's good. The story starts off fairly quick enough. It's right to the point. It is kind of a body horror more in that aspect. It's good. The Wolfman was fine. It was completely fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I liked it better than like Woman in the Yard. I think the Wolfman got a really harsh name, a harsh like rep right away, and I don't like. This is a bad Wolfman movie. This is a bad, Lon Chaney Jr., Bela Lugosi as the traveling gypsy Wolfman movie. It's not that. It's not even like the one made with Benicio del Toro or even Curse of the Werewolf. It doesn't have that gothic flavor. It has the kind of I guess you'd say trauma thing, where the father basically passed on his bad genetics, and he's physically going to pass on the werewolf curse as well to him, So I feel like this is a pretty decent movie. I don't like the idea that it's completely isolated. It kind of it shuts the world down and makes it smaller, which is not something I would look for in a Wolfman movie. I want to see this big gothic village. I want to see that kind of stuff. That's what I'm into. But for what this is, kind of a rendition of The Fly with some family drama and hereditary horror stuff going on, it's a pretty solid movie. It's acted well. It does drag a little bit and get a little repetitive when the siege kind of narrative in there, but overall the Wolfman's a pretty decent movie. I like the cinematography and stuff like that, and the special effects weren't nearly as bad as I thought, and I thought the performances were good, and you definitely need good performances in this one. So Wolfman's alright. It's not horrible. It's decent. Okay, the Patreon pick here is a 1973. And this is Nicholas Roeg, and this is Don't Look Now, starring Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland. And I have not seen this movie since I was maybe 19 years old. That's crazy. It's been almost 20 years since I watched Don't Look Now. I actually went ahead and listened to the short story as well while I was at work, and it's a good short story. It has a lot of similarities to Don't Look Now, but it has a lot of differences as well. So Nicholas Roeg, of course, did a bunch of films, Eureka, Performance. He's a pretty famous, cult kind of director, walkabout Australian guy. I believe he's Australian. I would say so. I know Walkabout's Australian, but I just assumed he was Australian as well. Donald Sutherland was one of my favorite actors growing up, and I always liked him. Always a big fan of him. So the original story does follow a couple in Venice. So in the film, it's different. Donald Sutherland, I'm going to do that. When you read a story and you see the movie, you're always like, in the movie, it's different in this. And you just get stuck on it, I know. But Donald Sutherland essentially is like basically kind of bringing a church back to life. He's I don't want to say remodeling. What's the word I'm looking for. He's basically refixing it up to its old prime and everything like that. And he's directly hired by this priest, who's a main character in here as well. And I like the priest character as a nice addition to the film. And Julie Christie and him had recently just lost a daughter. In the book, she dies of meningitis. In this, we have the opening where we actually see it, and we learn that Donald Sutherland has these premonitions and these weird connections. And we see a lot of weird visual things that tie into the movie later on, these beautiful visual moments that are warnings and premonitions. And movies that, I've been going through 1982, of course, and there's millions of premonitions there, and reincarnations, and all these kind of things like that. It's a very huge part of horror films. It's a huge staple in horror films, that idea, that sixth sense. It's just something haunting that gives chills around your, up your spine. And I think that this movie is probably one of the best movies that does premonitions and psychic abilities in kind of a really cool, unique way. The editing in the beginning is wonderful and depressing, and they lose this daughter in the very beginning, and they're trying to rekindle their love, and they're in Venice, and they're on vacation while he's also remodeling this, fixing up this church and trying to restore it and everything like that. And there's also some murders going on, and there's a couple scenes where they show people get pulled out of the nasty Venice water and things like that. One day they're out eating, and they spot these two old ladies who are sisters, and one appears to be blind, and grabs Julie Christie and says, "Hey, your daughter's fine. She's okay. She's with you. She's happy. She's, and this kind of sets her back to normal. And it bothers Donald Sutherland a lot, probably because it's fucked up, but also that he has this kind of sixth sense, this sense that he hides and fights, most likely similar to Jack Torrance in The Shining, right? Danny Torrance doesn't necessarily hide it, but they say that Jack Torrance hid his shining, that probably he doesn't want to look at this stuff. And I feel like there is some stuff lifted from Don't Look Now in The Shining. But hey, it is what it is. And that idea, right, that she tells him that, and their love kind of rekindles, and they have this really passionate love scene. And they talk about that in the special features, like people like Cronenberg and stuff, and I was like, that is kind of the smart thing. And like the thing that stands out to you is the way it's edited and the way it feels. And if you look at something like Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, the way they shoot that and shootout, and they slow things down and they speed things up, you feel the impacts, you slow these moments down, and you make people pay attention to the small details in pain, in love, in sex, in anything. And they really do that here. So they'll be cutting to them getting ready and having sex at the same time, and there's like so there's a point when Donald Sutherland walks by and she's getting ready after they've had sex, and he spots her. And you see how he looks at her. And I was just like, that's a shot right there. That's a shot, to me, that'll stay in the brain for the rest of my life. That's a touching, nice little moment. And I was like, that's a brilliant shot. That's a brilliant moment. That's how you feel. That's feeling. That's I believe it. I believe it. And the way they edit the last scene, and I don't want to spoil the last scene, but it's incredibly haunting, and everything comes together really well, and it almost seems throughout the movie is like, what is this jittery, crazy, drug-induced fucking fever nonsense? And then the end, you're like, oh shit, it all comes together. And like, it's one of those things that, like, if you were trying to live your life, look for little warnings all the time, you go completely mad. But they all come together, and you're just like, that is so disheartening and depressing, but impactful and well done. Who did the score? I think Pino Donaggio did the score, didn't he? I mean, one of the best to do it. And I might be wrong here, but I feel like music by Pino Donaggio, who does a fantastic score. It's shot incredibly well in Venice. It's edited incredibly well. I mean, Venice is a unique city where it's on the water, and it's just a weird place to have this, and the murders and the psychics and the premonitions and Donald Sutherland, and that crazy stunt where he hangs from the fucking church ceiling. But I just watching this is a great movie. I love this movie. I had not seen it, and I didn't like it when I saw it when I was 18. I was like, it's boring, it's stupid. And now I was stupid. And in 20 years, if I ever live that long, I'll probably look back and be like, I was stupid when I was 38. You know what I'm saying? But really enjoyed the 4K. Looked fantastic. Had some nice features on there. Sounded good. Look forward to revisiting this one. And there's no way in hell that this isn't one of my top 5 horror movies from 1973, and I love 1973. We got a lot of good stuff from 1973. I've actually been thinking about my opening for 1973, even though it's going to be like 8 years till I get there making my opening, and I'm looking forward to it, and that's funny. But a great Patreon pick. Always throw the classics at me, especially the 70s classics that I haven't watched in years. Always happy to do it. Always look forward to it. Maybe do some little extra research on it, like listening to the book, which I enjoyed. So there's some changes in that and stuff. There's some scenes, of course, like he does see his wife and the psychics, and they do do kind of make that a little bit more obvious and say that was you from the future and that kind of stuff like that. So I was like, I always like to do the literature as well, especially when it's a relatively short story. But Don't Look Now, great stuff. All right, let's do these questions, comments, and concerns, everything that's in there. So, Dino Reviews, just found your channel and love your collection. Great laid-back chat about horror, which is awesome to see at the moment, too. That Pete Walker set is great. Thank you. Thank you very much. It is great so far. I'm very happy to have it and watch it. Ken Coakley, I saw the Texas Chainsaw remake when it first came out in 2003. Didn't like it then, and after watching it yesterday, I haven't done an about-face when it comes to my opinion of the movie. The dialogue was pretty lame. I know that writing is pretty hard, but this is just bad. Talking about whether or not Leonard Skinner will play Freebird, then filling the rest of the scene with a bunch of hormonally loaded kids sucking face. Nice little fact here is Lee Ermey improv'd all his dialogue. That's why his is by far the best. Eric Learson made my Asperger's flare up with all the screaming. Jonathan Tucker looks so much like Matt Hooper in Jaws, but was neurotic. Eric Badford scored points with me by letting the FX people make a mold of his head so that we could finally see Leatherface wear an actual face instead of a bunch of different faces stitched together. I was never a fan of Jessica Biel, so I couldn't root for her. When I saw the obese woman going to have tea with her friend, I thought it was my 600-pound life. The young woman with short hair and shaved eyebrows was a dead ringer for Anne Heche. And the boy with the donkey teeth looked like Walton Goggins' love child. Harsh. One of the things I loved about the original 74 Texas Chainsaw was the fact that it was an indie picture and the victims experienced Leatherface one by one. Also, the original version was an early case of the Mandela effect. Just before VHS's, older people who saw the drive-ins throughout the 70s kept talking about how gory it was. Then when the video revolution started, we found out that Tobe Hooper wanted to make a PG-rated movie, but the MPAA gave it an R rating based on the subject matter a la the Conjuring franchise. Yeah. I remember being in a Best Buy years ago and somebody was talking about, like, or was it somebody told me like that? I can't remember, but they're like, the first one's too gory. And I was like, there's no gore in that fucking movie. Or that maybe that was my friend telling me that story about hearing somebody say that. But I remember helping find Texas Chainsaw in a Best Buy. Yeah, it's definitely, people always said it was gory. There's not really much blood in it. I read in one of the comments that there was a metal soundtrack in the remake. I didn't notice. I didn't either. I liked Lee Ermey in the remake, but he couldn't carry a movie like that. Mike Vogel went on to appear in Cloverfield as well, the faith-based film. I disagree. I think Lee Ermey carried it. The Case for Christ, which was based on a best-selling book by Lee Straub. Strobe? Is that Strobel? Or was that Strobe? Who Vogel played in the film. I liked Eric Bradford because his character reminded me of my brother. I also saw Texas Chainsaw at the beginning in a theater. I liked it more than the 03 film. You had to suspend disbelief during certain parts, such as the blonde girlfriend frolicking around in her lace undergarments. Even Raquel Welch was the biggest sex symbol in '69, had a rockin' body like that. I have met a lot of Leatherface actors. The first one I met was R.A. Mailoff from Leatherface 3. I met him a few times. He always remembered me because of the movie knowledge. He even stopped charging me for autographs. First time I met him at horror theme park called Spooky World, where I saw him 5 times over 7 years. The last time I saw him was at Rock and Shock in 2016. I met Andrew Bernowski at Rock and Shock in 2007. He was a bit of a douche. He got too wrapped up in his Leatherface persona that he started to think that he was only Leatherface. Then he told me that he was going to play Jason in the Friday the 13th remake, and he was going to be Pinhead in the Hellraiser remake. I believe that Jason won because of his size. I don't believe the Hellraiser won because he played a Cenobite that didn't talk. Wait, I didn't believe the Hellraiser one unless he played a Cenobite that didn't talk. To put it mildly, AB had the IQ of a kumquat. I was wearing a t-shirt of the movie poster of the original Texas Chainsaw. Bronowski saw it and told me the chainsaw in the illustration was upside down. I mentioned that to Gunnar Hansen when I met him at the Rock and Shock a couple years before he died. When I told him that Bronowski told me that chainsaw was upside down, Gunnar said, yeah, I told him that. Here's how I rate the Texas Chainsaw films from first to worst. So, okay, first one, I agree. Second one, agree. Third one, Leatherface, part 3, like that one. Then 4, Texas Chainsaw 2022, I do like that one, surprisingly. And then he's got 5, The Beginning, which I also like. And then he's got the remake, which I like. And then he's got Texas 3D, Leatherface, yeah. Those are both the worst. And New Next Generation I don't see you have on here, which I also don't love. I definitely have the same bottom 3 issue if Next Generation's in there. And then we have TJB96. Much love, Mrparka, been following for years. Thank you. Gray Nunez, thank you, with little hearts. Nick Buell from Belgium. Scream and Scream Again arrived today. Just had to watch it right away. It is a fascinating film for sure. It feels like a quilt that was stitched together a bit too quickly in places, but it feels nice and warm all the same. Amicus and AIP came together and did their best to bring an obscure pulp novel to the big screen. Most of the cast were confused throughout apparently and amazed it became a cult film. Many thanks for recommending it, sir. Those early 2000 Chainsaw Massacres really are quite good despite all the hate. They stand a head and shoulders above all the slop that followed. I must confess I feel strangely saying that this early 21st century horror flicks in general and these films simply are regarded as shit by many horror fans. Questions. Are you excited at all that Amicus is crawling its way back to the cinema surface with their latest anthology, In the Grip of Terror. Didn't even know it was happening, but it's pretty crazy. Do you think the OG Texas Chainsaw works as a black comedy? Supposedly Mr. Hooper intended it to hence it was rather humorous sequel. I do think it does certain points when he's like, look what you did to the goddamn door. I think the cook yelling at them is funny, but the rest is pretty horrifying. And Franklin can be funny, but it's a realistic funny. Which of the Pete Walker horror films is your favorite? For me, it's The Flesh and Blood Show and Frightmare. I don't know yet. I haven't finished them, but House of Whipcord is my favorite so far. Till next time, God willing, take care. Take care. Southport Rocker, great episode as always. We'll need to get those Shinobi box sets. The films look very good. Remind me of the Lone Wolf and Cub series. Hey, the guy from Lone Wolf and Cub is in the 4 and 5. Think I've seen the Texas Chainsaw remake, however, couldn't tell you anything about it. Haha, not seen the prequel or Texas Chainsaw 3D, which I heard was terrible. I turned 3D off. Pale Ghostly Eyes, Jessica Biel was insanely attractive in TCM. The Super Saiyan Death Metal God, one thing I appreciate about the 03 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is the metal soundtrack it has. You can't make me mad when you soundtrack has Lamb of God, Meshuggah, and Pantera on it. I didn't even notice, honestly. But that's got to be a compliment because noticeably a lot of those movies just plug in metal and it doesn't fit at all. So if they've somehow incorporated metal and it fits, I'm like, it's cool. Necropsy, I appreciate the content, appreciate the honesty. Thank you. And he has actually don't find the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre all that interesting. I think Tobe Hooper other films are way more fun. I love TCM, but I think stuff like Funhouse, Eaten Alive, Texas Chainsaw 2, and Salem's Lot and Life Force are all very underrated movies, and I think they're great. And he says, shooting a legacy sequel when you shoot in digital when the original film was on film ruins the tone. I agree, legacy sequels don't work. And he says, new content, cheers, mate. Thank you. Elk Vomit, when the 8-year anniversary upload came out, I requested Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury to be thrown in the bag. Is it still in there nearly 3 months later? Let's dig that sucker out. It is in there, and I plan on doing that whole box set. I only bump people up to the top that are on the Patreon. It's just the way I gotta go. But it will get drawn out eventually, and I do plan on doing that whole box set. I have the Criterion one. It kind of was a little salty because I bought that set, and then they released them in 4K and Arrow, and I was like, fuck. Then we have ABBA. Kudos to Radiance for following up with the Shinobi with Volume 2. I wish Eureka Vinegar Syndrome could possibly do the Red Pony Gambler series since there are a total of 8 episodes and only 3 episodes have been released so far. Me too. And then we have Way Up Dude, gives me a thumbs up and everything. I appreciate that. I guess we're going to get into this update. Alright, quick update here. We got a 4K of Sleepaway Camp 2 on Hampy Campers. Love that they went with the original cover art here. That's the classic cover art. Always loved that cover art. Been a while since I watched Sleepaway Camp 2. But always remember enjoying it, and I feel like Sleepaway Camp 3 here is a little underrated. Very fun movie, high body count, completely ridiculously stupid. Also 4K here, so yeah, gonna watch all 3. Surprised the first one, maybe the Elements or something, or somebody else has got it. Then we got The Medium, which is a Blu-ray here. I think a 1980 horror film. I watched this for 1980, and I remember being interesting enough. It's kind of I don't want to say it's hidden for sure. I don't know if it's a gem, but it's definitely underappreciated and a cool movie that not many people have seen. So that's really cool. That's on Blu-ray now. And then we got the Brivido Giallo set here from Cauldron Films, the Lamberto Bava TV movie set, Graveyard Disturbance, The Ogre Until Death, and Dinner with a Vampire. Yeah, very cool that these are out. I remember I had these all on DVD. I had 3 of them were all the Mia Communications, and the Ogre was a Media Blasters. But very cool that these finally got put out here. And I remember really liking Graveyard Disturbance, so that's cool. Great set. Hope Cauldron keeps it up. They're doing good stuff. So yeah, we're out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.